The new curriculum is still going to go a lot faster and a lot quicker. And so we're a lot faster and a lot further. And so we're going to have to think, I mean, a good rule of thumb is that pretty much everything we did in year 6 is going to be in year 4. So that's a good rule of thumb. So it is going to be a challenging curriculum. A curriculum that really challenges us as teachers. How are we going to approach this? What changes are we going to make to accommodate this? And in order to do this, I want to look at classroom practice. As some of you know who've either heard me talk before or who I've worked with before, I have a little heuristic that I use for how we teach maths in classrooms. We do some teaching. And it's interesting, isn't it, what this is? Teaching is not telling. I mean, politicians always seem to think it is, don't they? They always sort of seem to think that if teachers only told children things, everything would be fine. Well, if only that were true. You can tell children things till you're blue in the face. It won't have any effect. Teaching is intervention. It is modelling. It is demonstration. It is thinking what I can do to help the child who cannot do something do it. And that is very, very difficult on occasion. I lecture to mathematicians every now and then. And when I'm lecturing to mathematicians, these are not maths teachers, they are mathematicians. Really, really clever at maths, you know? And I always set them this little problem. Because my contention is, actually, the best maths teachers are not the best mathematicians. If you are actually a really brilliant mathematician, it's hard to be a good maths teacher. Actually, to be a good maths teacher, you kind of need to know what it feels like not to understand it. That's kind of helpful. Now, I always give this example. Supposing you are teaching a class of reception, because I think reception poses some of the biggest challenges in maths education. And if I'm teaching a class of reception, and I'm teaching them the concept of the next number, right? Now, in reception, I need children to understand that they can say the next number without starting at 1. So if I say 8, I want them to be able to say 9. Because that's the basis of counting on. Do you see what I mean? I don't want them to have to start at 1, right? So I say to them, I'm going to say a number and you're going to say the next number. So I go 8. And some of the children will go 9. And some won't. Now, what do I do as a teacher to help the ones who can't, be able to do it? What is my intervention? Bearing in mind these are reception children. They're only little. Well, it's a good question, isn't it? I think it's really a challenging question. People say to me, you use a number line. Yes, I do use the pegged number line, but the children who can't say 9 are probably the same children who have some trouble matching the spoken numeral to the written. So the number line will have only limited use here. Do you see where I'm coming from? Those who teach reception will definitely know this feeling. So what do I do to help them? Well, I do 2 things. One, I use an image. Sometimes I use big bricks, because big tower of bricks can be a very good indication of size of number. But more often here I will use candles on a cake. Because I'm going to be how old are you going to be next birthday is a question that children are very familiar with. And also one that they're very interested in. And so I say, all right, you're 5, how old will you be next birthday? 6. And they don't start at 1. Do you see where I'm coming from? So candles on a cake is a very good image. I also use what I call a prompt, which teachers very commonly use, which is I'll go, right, I'm going to say a number, you're going to say the next number. So I go 8, and then I go 7, 8. And I do whisper, 7, 8. Now I've done what they can't do. I've given the number before and the number. That's enough. They will then say 9. And I whisper because I want them to internalise it, which they do. And it's quite funny because when you say, you get them good at this, and you say to a child, you know, I'm going to say a number and you're going to say the next one, and I go 8, and then you'll hear their next door neighbour going 7, 8. You know, it's fine. It's all good. So it is the case that I think that teaching is the heart of this. It's a highly skilled business. It is knowing what model, what intervention, what piece of language, what character. Is it frog? Is it maths frog? Is it spider on the number grid? What character am I going to produce to do this? What language am I going to use? Is the vocabulary consistent throughout the school? Do they go from year 3 into year 4 and have a whole new set of things to learn? Whole new set of ways of talking about it? Or do we have consistency through the school? And that teaching is the heart of the matter, because without it, children cannot learn the maths because they haven't got the tools. In the teaching, we give them those tools. And it's surprising how efficient they are and how good they are. Secondly, children have to make sense. I will just say here 2 words that you might take away: consistency and coherence. We've got to have both those things. Secondly, children have got to make sense of what it is that I've taught them. And that means they have to make this knowledge their own. And we've all had the experience, haven't we, of doing a wonderful bit of teaching. And you know, it's really going well and all the class are on board and I'm making sure they're all paying attention and it's all good. And then you go out to do the activities at the tables and none of them know what to do. It's like you haven't taught it. Do you ever have that feeling? Because if you ever have that feeling, you know that there's a massive difference with them being able to do something when you're in the driving seat and them being able to do something when they're in the driving seat. Do you know where I'm coming from? That is the thing. And having children make sense of what we've taught them means they have to take ownership of it. It has to become their own. And this, again, is a very complex business. I don't know if any of you have ever taught a child to ride a bike. It'll be all the people in the room with bad backs. Because what you do is you hold on to the back of their seat, don't you? Yeah, exactly. You hold on to the back of the seat, preferably on a grassy slope, a little bit down, and you run along beside them and you're shouting, pedal, pedal, and you're running and they're pedaling. And at a certain point, you can feel that they are actually riding. You know, you're not taking any weight on your hand, they're actually riding. And I know with my 3rd child, my son Fred, I was running along beside him and I was going, pedal! And suddenly I could feel that he was absolutely riding. And I said to him, you're riding, Fred, you're riding. And he was like, no, Mum, keep holding on, I'm not. I'm like, you are, keep pedaling, you're riding. And I thought, I've got to give him some confidence here. So I took my hand off and said, look, you're riding. Crash! You know, now that is like maths, isn't it? You're doing something on the rug and they're all fine, and then they go away and do it and they can't do it at all, they fall off. And you have to kind of redo it or come back or give a little prompt or have some aid on the table that will assist. And it is children taking ownership of that so that they can do it, which makes difference. And what's the key here? The key here is that they have to articulate their learning. And articulate has a very useful ambiguity here, because it means not just to talk, to put into words, but also to connect, to make the connections. And so they have to connect, they have to make the connections so that they have taken ownership of that learning. And then the final part of the process is that children need to practice what we've taught them. Why? Because if you do not practice it, it will not stay taught. You will have to reteach it. And with this new curriculum, we have not got time to reteach. We do far too much reteaching as it is. And we haven't time for that. And nor should we be doing it. We need things to stay taught. So that means we have to do a lot more practice. And this is something that distinguishes both other countries from our country and also the private from the state sector. And it's something that I think we just need to think about. How can we get more practice on the map? We're all too happy that they've done the first 3 on a textbook page. We don't ask for them to finish the flipping page, because they've done 3 and they got them right. We're thinking that's great. Actually, no. They don't need to do 3, they need to do 20. And that's what's difficult. Now, I know what you're all thinking, and it's the same as me. Yes, that's all very fine, but hang on. There are only a certain number of hours in the day. How are we going to do this? Well, I have some suggestions about this. But before we go into that, I want to just first of all talk about the thing that we said at the beginning, which was about keeping the class together and about making sure that we have the class all addressing these age-related targets. Now, you go around the country and you go into classrooms, and in, I would say, 9 out of 10, on the wall you've got the maths groups. You've got the triangles. You've got the squares. You've got the pentagons, and you've got the hexagons. And we all know, don't we, that the hexagons are good and the triangles are not. And so do the children. And furthermore, the evidence is pretty unequivocal here. Children come in as triangles, they go out as triangles. This is not good. It is definitely not good. First of all, there are self-fulfilling prophecies here. If you call a child a triangle, they are likely to perform as a triangle. And secondly, actually, the fact of the matter is that perhaps the bottom 2 groups are not doing as well as the average, and that's too many children. Now, differentiation has been an issue in England as long as I've been teaching. And it is the case that definitely we need to make some changes. But, by the same token, in my year 1 class, I have children right now. I teach 1 day a week. I know you're thinking that sounds like the ideal number of days to teach. You're not wrong. Obviously, the person who has the class 4 days a week has got the short straw. He's very good. It is the case that in our year 1 class, we have children who can't count to 5, really can't count to 5. I mean, you know. And I have children who are quite confident counting past 100. You know, that's just for starters. It is clearly inappropriate to give them all the same diet. You know? That would clearly be inappropriate. So how do I square this circle? Right? I'm saying can't have your maths groups, don't like it, it's bad. It's not good for English teaching maths in England. It's not good for English mathematics. You know, don't want that. But I can't give a, how do I square this circle? Well, I do something which I call fuzzling the groups. This is not a verb that is yet in the Oxford English Dictionary, but it will be. It will be. Fuzzle the groups. This is all about planning. When you do your planning, it's a Sunday night, and there you are planning. Now, I know this because I run Hamilton, and it is the case that, you know, Hamilton weekly plans, you can see when most teachers are on the Hamilton site. We have somewhere around 70,000 teachers using Hamilton, which is about between a third and a half of the workforce. And I tell you when they're all on the site, it's Sunday night between about sort of 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock in the evening. There is another little peak, which is kind of equally interesting, which is between 7 and 8 on a Monday morning, which is when my 2 daughters, who are both teachers, tell me those people who have a life are on the site. But anyway, the fact of the matter is that there you are on a Sunday evening and you're doing your planning, and someone downstairs is shouting, hurry up! But anyway, you're doing your planning, and, you know, you're thinking, what objective am I teaching this week? You know, what am I going to do? And then I'm thinking, right, okay, I want to plan 3 activities. I want to plan an activity for the ones who can basically do what I'm planning, what the objective is, you know, what the main focus of the lesson is. They can basically do that. I want an activity for the ones who are going to go finished as soon as I've given it to them. You know, I need something a bit more challenging to give them, to take them on. Not necessarily on further, but stretch them a bit. And then I need something for my poor old strugglers. Sorry about this. But I need something for my strugglers. I need something for the ones who that objective is going to be too hard for. So I need something which is probably a prerequisite. So if I'm doing frog subtraction, and most of the class are going to be doing 91 minus 38, for my strugglers I might be doing 40 minus 38, 60 minus 56. So I'm going to the next multiple of 10. Because if they can get that, then we can go on from there, you know. So we are doing counting up subtraction, but I've made it that bit easier. The numbers aren't smaller, but I've made it easier because the gaps are smaller. Do you see where I'm coming from? So I've got something for my strugglers. Now, on a Sunday night, I've got to put the kids somewhere for Monday. So what I do is I put initials beside each of the activities. So I know where the children are, and I'll have 3 tables doing the sort of core activity, and I'll have a table doing the thing that I've prepared that is a little bit easier, and I might be working with them on the Monday, and I've got something for me high flyers, yeah? On Monday, I teach that. On Monday afternoon, I mark the maths. This is the key. This is the absolute key. This is what turns schools around from being struggling to being highly successful. You have to mark the maths every day. It's the only subject which matters like that. And I know this isn't popular, and I know you're all not liking it, and everybody's face has gone from nice to being really hostile, but it is the case that it makes a massive difference. You don't necessarily have to write in the books and do the traffic lights, but you have to look at what they do, what's gone on. Because on Tuesday, I'm going to write different initials. I've got the planning, it's all done. There's 3 levels of activity done for the whole week. But what changes is not my plan. I don't have to go back and replan. What changes is where the initials are. I think, do you know what? She did really well with that. I'm not going to keep her with the strugglers. She's going up to do this. You know, by contrast, you were having a real trouble there. I don't think you could handle that. I think I need to actually think about what you're doing. You need to do a bit more on a prerequisite. So the initials are going to change. And there's no groups on the wall. And I might not even be putting them on the same tables. So nobody has any sense of being in a maths group. No one has any sense of being in the bottom group. Now, children aren't stupid. They will know roughly where they are. But this will prevent that complete categorization that we currently have. And it makes not one jot of difference to your planning. The only thing it makes a difference to is that you have to mark the maths. And you have to fuzzle your groups. You have to move the initials around. But believe me, it makes a massive difference to outcomes. It really does. Now, given that I fuzzle my groups, and I'm teaching, and I'm hoping that the children will make sense of what I have taught them by allowing time for articulation, and then I'm going to give them lots of practice, how am I going to get these things I've been talking about on the map? How am I going to get the children actually doing the memorization I talked of earlier and the extra practice I talked about? Well, I do not think we should extend the maths lesson. I think from year 2 to year 6, we probably have a time in the day which is called a maths lesson. Whether it's called that or not, it is that. Maybe in year 1 we have that, but some year 1 work more of an integrated day, that's fine. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think we should extend that time. I think what we should do is think about the other times in the day that we can be doing maths. Just as we think of English as not just taught in an English lesson. Now, we take it for granted that English is not only taught in an English lesson. But we've never really thought about this in relation to maths. So, in English, in the infants, we allow 10 minutes a day for phonics. Everybody does. And I'll tell you what, a big secret, we were doing this before Michael Gove came along. I've actually been doing it all my teaching career. So, you know, as I say, that's a long time. And of course, we didn't have made up words then, but we did do phonics. So the fact of the matter is that actually we allow 10 minutes a day for phonics. In the juniors, we need that 10 minutes. We're going to claw that 10 minutes on the timetable, and we're going to have 10 minutes a day quick maths. And the quick maths is when we practice that memorization. Every single day, we practice some quick maths, some memorization that we can do fast. Tables, number bonds. 1.8 plus what makes 2? Doubles, halves. No work calculations. 400 plus 30 plus 6. Zapping. 436, what do I have to do to get rid of the 3? You know, all those sorts of things. All the things I want on automatic pilot. All the things where I want the children to say, I don't know how I knew, I just knew. Because that's why I love it when they say that. So all those things are done in quick maths, 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes, sorry, 10 minutes a day in the juniors. Quick maths activities for year 3, year 4, year 5 and year 6, and they are really nice. Little memorisation, quick things that you can do. So that's one thing, claw back that 10 minutes. That's all fine, I can hear you thinking, but what about the infants? Well, in the infants, I've written a little book called 5-Minute Fillers, which is available outside. Or, if you want, just email Hamilton. And 5-Minute Fillers, once again, it goes free to Abacus users, so Abacus users don't have to worry. 5-Minute Fillers is you're standing in the corridor with your year 2s, you're waiting to go into assembly, and you've got to keep them quiet somehow, haven't you? And so what you do is you're going down the line, and I say, right, I'm going to say a number, you're going to say the number that goes with it to make 10, right? 5. Oh, way too slow. Afraid to go to the back of the queue. 7. You know, she wasn't very fast either, back of the queue. Right, okay, we're going down the line, and we're just doing this in the line. You're coming back after PE, and they're all changing, and they're coming onto the rug one at a time. I've got an activity as they come onto the rug that I'm doing with them. It's a 5-minute filler. You've got 5 minutes before you have to go out to play. You don't want to get any equipment out. You might sing a song, you might tell a story, you might do a bit of maths. So they're 5-minute fillers, little things that you can do in the infants, with the children, in the corridor, on the rug 5 minutes before play, or after PE, while they're changing. So that is all about clawing back bits of spare time that is in the day. What about the practice? What about the fact that I said they don't need to do 3 calculations, they need to do 20? Right. In the maths lesson, they get the 3 done, if you're lucky. And then, what am I going to do? Well, first of all, like with English, I can have finishing off. In English, if I'm doing at the moment in our class, we're doing marbling. I must be mad. But anyway, we're doing marbling for art, right? So when we're doing art in the afternoon, you know, I've got 4 or 5 children, no more, who are doing marbling with me. There's another 4 or 5, or 3 or 4 actually, who are doing it with the teaching assistant, yeah? We're all getting very messy. The rest, what are they doing? Well, they could be doing colouring in because it is art, but they could be finishing off their maths. They're often finishing off their English, because I'll often say to them, well, you haven't finished your story, you can get that out and finish off your story, or you didn't finish that recount, could you go back, and anybody who's not finished their recount, I'd like them to do it. I often do that, that's routine in most classrooms, but we never do it for maths. Well, we need to start doing it. We need to start saying, okay, you didn't finish that textbook page, could you go and find it, and I'd like you to finish it. And furthermore, I need to be a bit more on the ball about this. When I've got those kids who spent half an hour looking for the rubber, I say, well, you didn't finish your textbook page, and so I'd like you to take it home, and I want it done for tomorrow. And if it's not done, I'm afraid it's going to be playtime, because this just needs to be done. I need it done, you need it done, that's just how it is. Because I know you're a brilliant mathematician, but if you don't finish that page, I can't prove it. And I can't let a brilliant mathematician slip through my, you know, slip out, so that's how it is. We need to have that extra practice, needs to be on the same line as finishing your story. Teachers wouldn't let a story go unfinished, they make sure that they finish it. We shouldn't be letting particular things, isn't it? It's not all the things, it's particular things. It's the mental math strategies, it's the algorithms. Those are the things where we need the practice. You see where I'm coming from? Other things you don't need to worry so much. You will know. You know what things need practice and what things it doesn't matter so much. So I don't have to list them, you know. And you also know with certain children, they need to do a bit more practice. They've got it, but it's not secure. So I need to put that effort into getting it secure. Now, the government is requiring that all schools produce a calculation policy. As soon as the new curriculum comes out, schools have to produce a calculation policy. The calculation policy will outline on a year-by-year basis the ways that you are teaching mental and written maths. year by year in your school. I strongly suggest that you do not produce this in advance of the curriculum, because what comes in or stays or goes out of that draft curriculum will make a lot of difference to it. Secondly, it is once again insane for every single school and every single teacher to start with a blank sheet. This is something we're very good at making work for ourselves in education. We shouldn't do it. We will produce a draft calculation strategy as a Word document, policy as a Word document that you can download and tinker with. Change, adapt, alter, rewrite. At least it gives you somewhere, if nothing else, it gives you a table, you know, gives you something to write into. Because I think it's sometimes much more helpful to change something than to start afresh. And so we will produce that, and ditto for abacus. I mean, in fact, it will be basically the same thing, because the philosophy is the same, so that we're really getting that on the map. And I think, what can we do in advance of the new curriculum? One, we can start implementing some of this extra maths, the quick maths, the 5-minute fillers, the extra practice. We can start doing that. Two, we can be really aware of what systems in school facilitate that. Do people have to show a quick math session on their timetable? How do I know you're doing the memorisation? Because actually, if in year 2 I'm not teaching the children their number bonds, the year 3 teacher has a right to be cross. That's definitely true. And if in year 3 and year 4 we are not getting the times tables on the map, really on the map, the year 5 teacher has a right to be cross. The year 5 teacher has got a right to expect that these things have been taught. Otherwise it is impossible in year 6. It's absolutely impossible. And when we're having to teach more, it's going to be more impossible. So those things. So in advance of the curriculum, get the extras on the map, get the quickfire maths on the map, start looking at consistency and coherence through the school in terms of the models and images, in terms of your vocabulary. Are we talking about taking away in the infants and then expecting the children in year 3 to suddenly see that subtraction is difference? Are we talking about sharing in the infants, which division is not, and then suddenly expecting the children to see division as the inverse of multiplication the moment they hit year 3? I'm not going anywhere, not least because there's another session. And so if people want to come out and ask a question, I'm very happy to answer it privately. Okay?